I'm Miranda Nikolich, and I am a Community and Stakeholder Engagement Manager, and I'm working with Main Roads, Western Australia.
And I'm Charlie Wilson-Clarke. I'm a Community and Stakeholder Engagement Manager, and I worked with the Swan River Pedestrian Bridge Alliance, which was part of the construction for Matagarup Bridge.
Matagarup Bridge is the key entry point to Perth Stadium, which is a new entertainment facility and precinct that opens up into the Burswood Peninsula along the Swan River, which is a recreational and residential area, and then connects to the opposite side of the river in East Perth, and is designed to take people to and from events, but also be used as a key recreational facility connecting those environments.
So Matagarup Bridge is a pedestrian bridge, but I think for people around Australia it's harder to communicate just how significant this bridge has been for Perth. It's really changed the skyline of Perth, and it's now a symbol of Perth. It's opened up a whole new space for the community, and which is not just important for event days at the stadium, but for people just on regular days, on non-event days. It's a significant structure. It's 72 metres in the air. It's got an incredible lighting system at night, and it's really sort of changed the face of that part of Perth.
People think of a pedestrian bridge as a fairly narrow item to take you across to somewhere. This bridge is at its narrowest point 9 metres wide and goes as wide as 21 metres, and it even has trees planted along the some of the widest parts. So it's quite an amazing structure.
Mm.
As part of the project, we used a number of tools and methods to engage with the community, both the community and the complex network of stakeholders involved over the course of the project.
Yeah, it was extremely broad. So it ranged from quite formal, regular meetings with local government organisations, face-to-face meetings with businesses that were right alongside and affected by the construction of the bridge. We had water ferry companies who needed to substantially change their business or even close their operations for a portion of the construction. There were local schools, resident groups, so a big range of stuff from, your written traditional methods to face-to-face. And I think a big thing for us was needing to remain adaptive. So often it was about finding out from community or other stakeholders how they wanted to be engaged and adapting our methods to those preferences.
In the early planning of the project, we used reference groups to coordinate the interface with complex stakeholders across government. We had to interface with the construction of Perth Stadium as well, and with the public transport providers in Western Australia. So as well as a complex environmental process. So reference groups were used, and then a series of working groups to coordinate that interaction and engagement. Many of the surprises, I think, were outside of the engagement space. For example, some complications with steel fabrication. They were far more technical of nature, but they spilled into the engagement space and influenced when engagement could occur, what types of methods that we could use, and even put the principles, I guess, that we had tried to engender as a team with our stakeholders at risk. And they were outside our control to manage. So they were the key surprises, I think.
Yeah, there were plenty of surprises, and I think a lot of that came down to the complexity of the technical program and the construction program itself. Towards the end of the project, we needed to undertake dynamic testing, which was a requirement for the bridge to be signed off as completed, and that came about because of the London Millennium Bridge, which was open to the public and then had issues with stability and was swaying with the under the crowd. So that came along very late in the project, that we understood that process needed to be undertaken, and it required an activation program of up to 1,200 members of the public. So in a very short space of time, we needed to generate excitement and interest with community who had been waiting a long time for this bridge to be finished, and invite them to come and be part of a dynamic testing program. So that's just one of the surprises that we got along the way. But most of it was due to the complexity of the construction and delays in the program, but that then needed to be managed with our stakeholder group.
One of the key successes, I think, was using those surprises to create opportunities for engagement.
Yeah. I think we have applied the IAP2 spectrum and core values to this project, certainly. Well, the value I find in the spectrum is often just understanding that you're not always at an advanced stage, that there's value in all parts of the spectrum. And so during construction, the informed part is really important because we need to make sure that stakeholders are given accurate information and that they know when to expect disruption, and that you keep those lines of communication open. But as we move up the spectrum, we did have a lot of opportunity to use the consult and involve. Perhaps less so in the collaborate, but we had some discrete projects which could be seen as a collaborate. There's a very one of our favourite parts of the bridge. I'm sure I'm speaking for you, Miranda, but one of our favourite parts is an audio art installation on the bridge, which involves the voices of Whadjuk elders in Perth, and that was certainly a collaboration. It was a collaboration between Whadjuk leaders, between local musicians and some artists and voice actors. And so there's a certain point on the bridge where when you're walking across, particularly on a nice quiet day, sensors are activated and you can hear this music and story and history all sort of intertwined, which makes a really beautiful reflective space for community when they're interacting with the bridge. So that was a really lovely piece of collaboration.
And I think key to it was the involvement and with the Whadjuk people from a very early part of the planning process, and that enabled because the bridge actually started out as the Swan River Pedestrian Bridge and was renamed Matagarup because of the local significance of that name. It means where the crossing is knee deep, which refers to the part of the river where the bridge crosses, and that name actually was developed with the Whadjuk working group, who had a key role with the project. I think so. Some of the challenges that we experienced is it was engaging or getting the right people to engage with us within those stakeholder groups. It's a key challenge, I think, across lots of projects. It was easier to get in the commercial space because there was a direct impact. So those people come out very quickly. It's the wider community can be a bit complacent or slow to respond to engagement opportunities.
Yeah. And I think one of the other key challenges was just around the technical program and the complexity of the construction process. It was difficult to communicate that to stakeholders because they kept thinking of it as just a pedestrian bridge, and until we actually started to get the pieces of steel closer to site and they started to put together some of the larger pieces of the structure, that's when people started to say, oh, wow, this is more than just a pedestrian bridge. And once that scale of the project became more visible, it did start to change the sentiment around the project. Yeah.
And I guess building on those challenges was looking at a very constrained site with very little opportunity to use. We needed to create room. That's very difficult to do in a sensitive environment with the river and a widespread adjacent reclaimed area that we were working within. And again, it was a scale thing. We had over 100 metres of area to try and create a platform to build the bridge on, I guess, and then that had to be removed. So it was one thing keeping the information flowing about what we were doing to build it, but at the end of the construction we actually had to remove a lot of the material that had been placed in and around the river, which meant delicate negotiation and collaboration with some of the environmental regulators and the community because they were directly impacted by those processes.
I think the advice I would give other practitioners in this field, is to sort of trust yourself. So there's a certain amount of intuition that comes with engagement work, I think. And if you're having genuine relationships, you need to kind of trust that little voice inside you when, if you feel like the right thing to do is to reach out to community and let them know about something that's coming up. Even if you can't give them a lot of information, you need to trust that instinct. Yeah.
And back yourself. Trust yourself and back yourself and back the program that you've put together. But again, also trust that if something's not working, it's actually okay to say it's not working and we need to find a different way.
Yeah.